This video is made possible by Second Call Defense. Second Call Defense provides immediate, upfront legal protection for a member who is forced to use any legal weapon for self-defense. So protect yourself today with Second Call Defense. I did. You'll find the link in the description. Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. I am super duper grateful. Listen, I've had a bunch of interviews lately because of all this stuff going on in California after the Bruen case and California's desire to burn the Constitution to the ground in order to keep us from exercising our constitutionally protected firearms rights, the right to keep and bear arms. And I have not yet had an attorney on. And so Chuck Michel from Michel & Associates, who is also the volunteer president of the California Rifle and Pistol Association, has agreed to join me. I will post this video all over the place. So if you look at these places right here, that's where the video is going to be. You may visit any of them you wish. And I do urge you to subscribe to some of these alternative places. Rumble and BitChute seem to be the most popular. So you may want to also subscribe there just in case YouTube takes the video down or boots me off of YouTube. And so there you go. So let's go talk to Chuck and figure out exactly where we go from here and how we fight the battle. Chuck, thank you very much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. We need the legal expert on to tell us exactly what's going on in this cockamamie state. And frankly, since I'm liable to ask really stupid questions, I'm just going to kind of let you run with it. What's happening in our legal battle over the 2A now that Bruen has been settled and the California legislature and governor want to burn the Constitution to keep us from succeeding?
Right. That pretty much sums it up.
I figured.
Not exactly legal parlance, but pretty much hits the nail on the head. It's the blue resistance. They do not like the Supreme Court's ruling in Bruen, and they are doing everything they can to frustrate it, much like the courts did after the Heller decision, when they didn't like that decision, and many of the courts in this country bent over backwards intellectually to try and come up with some kind of a deferential standard of review that would make most gun control laws withstand a constitutional challenge. So most things were upheld as constitutional after the Heller decision. And finally, after 14 years of trying, we got a case back to the Supreme Court again, now with a newly reconstituted Supreme Court with judges who are originalists and not trying to do any kind of a living constitution thing or whatever their predilection is. And so we got a good ruling that says that the Second Amendment is not a second-class right and it has teeth. And so that ruling in New York specifically shot down New York's special need requirement to get a license to carry a firearm in public. As soon as that happened, the Attorney General in California advised local authorities to not require good cause, because good cause is essentially the same as the special need / proper cause that New York was requiring. So anybody can get one now just for self-defense. Well, they don't like that. So sore loser Gavin has been leading a blue resistance in Sacramento, as has the states of New York and the states of New Jersey, trying to effectively nullify your license to carry in public by making it invalid in so many places that it's essentially impossible to go from one place to another without going through some kind of a banned zone where your license is not valid. They're deeming everything and anything they can think of to be a sensitive place, which licenses can be not valid in what is a legitimate sensitive place, but they're trying to define anything as a sensitive place that's 1,000 yards of a church, a school, or a stop sign. That's how far they're going to go on this. It's just ridiculous. So we'll be in litigation with the state of California over what they're defining as sensitive places. Then they're trying to redefine good moral character. So if you ever took a mulligan at golf, you're a bad character and you don't get a permit. This is the games that we're playing now. This is the blue resistance. They want to do everything they can to try and frustrate the Supreme Court's instructions. and make your license as useless as they can do. The next phase of their blue resistance was to just drop a ton of new laws on us. And you need to have Rick come in and talk to you about the swamp that is rigged Sacramento and all the stuff that's going on there, because I haven't even had time to focus on that yet, except for one bill, which is the ban on marketing to minors. And CRPA will be filing a lawsuit in that today, in fact. That would basically make it impossible to have junior shooting events or run an ad to recruit juniors. And they've made no secret about it that, they want to murder the gun culture. They don't want to have people able to get a gun, and they don't want juniors to be able to be taught shooting. They don't want to bring juniors into the shooting sports, whether it's hunting, target shooting, whatever. They want to make it impossible to educate juniors about safe and responsible and fun shooting. And so that's what this bill does. Now, that's a First Amendment violation as far as we're concerned, and so we're taking that into court today to try and put a stop to it. And then the thing that's been getting the most attention, or at least people have been bringing it to my attention, is the leak of the information, the personal street addresses, name, and information about CCW holders. Attorney General Bonta, no fan of gun ownership, posted a data portal that he said was designed to increase transparency. Well, it was a little too transparent. Somebody didn't know where the line's drawn. They've never released the home addresses of CCW holders. Your name and your city, those are public records. Your good cause, not necessarily, because you're not going to release information that says, oh, I carry thousands of dollars in cash every night from my store on Main Street to the bank 3 blocks down, because that just makes you a target. And so does street addresses. So those have all been withheld in the past from any kind of public records request. And Bonta, through, frankly, gross incompetence, we're just not quite sure what the incompetence was yet. Was it a technical mistake? Was it some clerk that just didn't know where the line should be drawn? Or was it Bonta doing this intentionally as part of this blue resistance movement to try and discourage people from applying for a CCW because they think their home address might be leaked? But in any event, roughly 200,000 names of CCW holders with home addresses and street addresses were leaked. And so now there's this target list out there. Imagine, this is judges, prosecutors, police, reserve officers, and not to mention some stalking victim who finally got away from her stalker and didn't want that. Last thing she wants is that stalker, or he for that matter, wants is that stalker to be able to find where she lives and come do whatever he wants to do. But her address is now out there. So there's an awful lot of people that are very, very, very angry about this. CRPA is actually working in Sacramento with the sheriffs. By the way, the sheriffs are included among the people who are very angry because these are licenses that they gave out, and they never wanted these names and addresses released.
Well, Chuck, by the way, I would include probably some folks in Hollywood,
celebrities,
and some YouTubers, and others who have concealed carry permits, and many of those folks spend a lot of money and effort and time to try to keep their home address off the internet so that they don't have people pestering them. And now they've been outed and what do they call it? Doxed as well.
Yes.
This is the blue resistance is a great name for it, and it's very over the top. They seem to have thrown everything but the kitchen sink at us. I guess the questions that probably I would ask you immediately, and I get a couple of them. One I would ask you is what are our chances of succeeding in our fight against this?
Well, that's case by case. I think we have an excellent chance of succeeding on our First Amendment argument to block this ban on marketing the shooting sports to minors. And we intend to be in court on a TRO. If not this week, then early next week. The complaint will be filed today. and then you file the motion for a request for a temporary restraining order. It's basically an urgency measure because there's a huge shooting sports fair, youth shooting sports fair at Rahagis in Riverside on July 15th, which folks should go to and show your support. But that would, a lot of that would be banned. A lot of the signage and the marketing and the things that the range would do to promote that event would be banned by this law. And so we want this event to go off as planned, not as the government wants it to be. You got to think about it, though. This is part of Newsom's ban the gun culture, eradicate the gun culture. He wants this generation of gun owners to be the last. And then as far as other things, though, so that's that lawsuit to challenge that. There will be lawsuits challenging sensitive places when they over-designate areas where your CCW permit is no good by designating them as sensitive places when they're not really sensitive places. And those, I think we have good chances too, because in the Bruen decision, Justice Thomas actually laid out, not 100% of the way, but a lot of what constitutes a sensitive place and what doesn't. And so that will be helpful. And then on the CCW information release, that's a trickier one because is it a class action? What are the causes of action? You know, ironically, the DOJ is down in San Diego right now trying to defend the law that allows the DOJ to release the information to Garen Wintermute and certain researchers, but did never authorize it for complete public release.
Yeah, and we warned about this very thing happening when they wanted to pass that law in the first place, but nobody wanted to listen. I mean, that was the whole issue was we didn't want this data out for the world to see and to find. And
we said it's going to leak. And the DOJ said, well, if it does, you have all these causes of action. By the way, this is why we don't want gun registration. The government could screw up anything. I mean, the government can't do anything right except seize more power. So you can't be trusting them with this kind of information. You can't trust them with donor lists. You can't trust them with member lists. You can't trust them with home addresses. I mean, none of this stuff is really safe. This is the hugest breach of trust, probably in the history of California, that they let all this information out and inviting violent conflict.
You can't trust the dirty trick squad up there not to have done this deliberately, whether it was Bonta doing it deliberately or some mid-tier or low-tier staffer who got a wild hair up his rump and decided he wanted to do it. Who knows? And now the DOJ is investigating itself.
Right. But the sheriffs are insisting on being a part of that. And some of the district attorneys are looking into this. You know, it could be a criminal violation to release certain information. But the real challenge for us is whether or not, what are the civil violations? What can you get out of this? The problem is the cat's out of the bag. You can't put the information back in the bag. It's out there on the dark web and will always be there. They can try and limit it. They can try and claw back as much as they can, but no court can order everything to be taken down off the internet. It's just not within the power of the court system. So we're looking at causes of action. Meanwhile, there's a group out there that I think clearly jumped the gun and filed what they're calling a class action already, which I don't think, that was premature because we don't want to give the DOJ the opportunity to hide behind defending some lawsuit to cover up their investigation. And we have technical experts working with the sheriffs to figure out exactly what can be done with this information. Now, can you take a field from one database? Remember, it's not just CCW holders. It's assault weapon registrations. It's firearm safety certificates. It's dealer record of sale information. There's more than just CCW. So how can you cross-reference those? Can you take a column from one and match it with another and get an idea of a person's entire gun collection, all the guns that person owns, the gun registration database? I mean, it's not impossible, but we need to get the tech guys, and we have them now from some of the best tech companies looking into this and challenging whatever kind of baloney the DOJ may say about what can and cannot be done with this. But truly, the legal challenge to the leak, ironically, is one of the most unusual. I have 3 lawyers putting together an analytical brief on what causes of action we can bring in, what damages, more importantly, what damages. I mean, if you have a class of 200,000 people, there's a lot of individual members that have to be managed. So let me thank folks who are sending me their email addresses. We will get more information out to you. And CRPA will be GOC, by the way, will be putting this out through their channels and through you, obviously. I've gotten a lot of folks getting a hold of us because of GOC, CRPA, GunGuyTV, Armed Scholar, putting this out for folks to know about it. I really appreciate that, because we do want to keep all those people in the loop. But the exact legal remedy and how to package it and present it, there will be one. We're just not quite sure if it's going to be a class action or a mass action where it's not a class of people, each individual brings their own claim, or we put some kind of a package together that people can basically fill in the blanks and file their own small claim. The ironic thing is, while DOJ is down in San Diego defending its release of this information to the scholars, to the researchers, they're saying, oh, there's all these causes of action, but they can't name them, because the lawyers down there on our side are saying, well, what do we do if you leak this? And now it's not an academic discussion anymore.
Right. It's not a hypothetical anymore. It's already out there. So, I've been getting the last few days, one thing I want to point out is you keep hearing Chuck's computer going off. And yesterday when I did an interview with Sam Predage, we keep hearing the computer going off. And that's because these folks are being inundated. This stuff is happening very quickly. It's just crazy. So when you hear his computer going off, that's what's happening, and that's what was happening with Sam the other day. My email's been blowing up, and so I've gotten a number of questions here, and I'll just ask you a couple of them. You mentioned something about there may be criminal liability there where the leak is concerned, but the question I get from a lot of gun owners, and I've probably gotten it from 30 in the last couple of days, is how is it that, let's say, for example, with the bill, is it SB 918, I think, where they're trying to make the concealed carry so difficult and so onerous that you can't carry anywhere, requiring, and there's all these different things they're trying to do. Anybody can read the decision and it makes sense because it's written in fairly plain English, even an average person can understand. And so the question is, how is it that the state legislature can violate the plain meaning of the law, but as a citizen, if I do that, I get arrested, but if the legislature does it in a state or the governor signs off on laws like that and they don't go to jail, what's the punishment? Is there a punishment for those people knowingly, willingly violating the law of the land?
Well, the short answer to that is yes. The long answer to that is it's not easy to prove willingly, knowingly violating. They're going to claim that they're just following what the Supreme Court says. Their Supreme Court gave a map to declare things a sensitive area, a sensitive place where your license is no good. And so they're just going to declare a lot of places to be sensitive areas. So as far as they're concerned, the blue resistance says that's legal. We're following the Supreme Court's mandate. Obviously, they're not acting in good faith. They're trying deliberately to nullify the Bruin ruling and to make a CCW, a license to carry in public, useless because they don't want you to be able to. But they'll argue that they're following the letter of the law and the letter of the Bruin ruling and passing these stupid laws, which will just make everybody, put everybody in danger. The people who had these licenses before will now have a less valuable license, and these are the people who need it: judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, people who have, celebrities, people who are being stalked or make enemies. Every day, half the people walking out of a courthouse are losers. Half the people lose every day. And so,
right.
They're not all happy,
They generally don't like their attorney because they lost. That's right.
Right. So, I've tried to hold politicians liable under RICO. For breaching their oath of office. It typically doesn't get very far because they come up with some flimsy justification for what they did, and a court's going to buy it.
Well, okay, so which brings up a different question, and that is, so many of these things, as I look, I was looking up, I was reading the decision again this morning because I didn't want to sound like an idiot when I was talking with you. And this really jumped out at me as part of, it's kind of early on in the decision, but this really jumped out at me, is this statement. To justify its regulation, the government may not simply posit that the regulation promotes an important interest. Rather, the government must demonstrate that the regulation is consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearms regulation. Only if a firearms regulation is consistent with this nation's historical tradition may a court conclude that the individual's conduct falls outside the Second Amendment's unqualified command. Now, the phrase that got me there was the phrase unqualified command. And I thought, I know what a command is, and that's not a request. And if it's an unqualified command, that means there's no qualifiers associated with it. It is what it is.
Shall not be infringed.
Shall not be infringed. And so when we look at these various things, which arguably I would say, and you would say, and I would hope a court would say are infringements, and I think even judging by Thomas's decision and the concurring opinions are infringements. How difficult is it to get some of these brand new laws tossed? And how long are we talking about this battle taking before people can actually exercise their right to bear?
Well, first, let me commend you because to paraphrase an old Wendy's commercial, you found the beef. That is the where the real meat, the real finding, the real teeth that the Second Amendment now have come from, because the Supreme Court changed the standard of review. There is no standard of review anymore. Remember, we've talked before on previous interviews about rational basis, intermediate scrutiny, strict scrutiny. The more scrutiny there is, the more laws fall. The less scrutiny there is, the more likely the law is to be upheld. That's a framework that was adopted from First Amendment jurisprudence and some other constitutional rights, and it's been rejected for the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment now is, they go with history. It's originalism. They go with history and tradition and what kind of laws would have been tolerated at the time that the Second Amendment was passed, or when the 14th Amendment was passed that incorporated the Second Amendment against the states. And there's not many. And so we've got a challenge to, in the Ninth, was recently in the Ninth Circuit, to the California's black rifle ban. We've got a challenge that's still in the Ninth Circuit to the ammo background check. CRPA has a challenge to LA County's CCW good cause requirement, which will probably now, they will just fold. And then the big one is the Duncan case, challenging the ban on the possession of magazines that can hold over 10 rounds. And the Supreme Court granted review in that case, vacated the lower court's ruling saying that that law was constitutional, and remanded it, telling the Ninth Circuit, you better reconsider your ruling now in light of what we just said in Bruin. So all of those cases are in play. None of them have to start from scratch, really. They're all kind of far along, but then we'll file new ones, which will start from scratch on sensitive places or good moral character or the other things that, I think there's 16 bills that are going to be sent to Newsom.
I believe it's 16 or 17, right?
And he's going to sign them off. He's already announced.
Oh, yeah, he won't even care what they say. He'll just sign them.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. The day of a thoughtful review by a considering governor actually trying to decide whether or not a law makes sense or not, those days are history. The days of actually doing your job and governing and not just signing everything comes across your desk, that's not where he's coming from anymore. He's vindictive. He's a sore loser. He wants to crush gun ownership and make it impossible to buy a gun. Oh, we're also getting ready to file the big things that hurt people in California the most. Everything hurts, don't get me wrong. It's all a deprivation of our rights, and they've been being shoved down our throats for 20 years or more. But black rifle bans, the roster that has eliminated most handguns from being available to be sold in this state, and the ability to carry a firearm in public with the license whether it's concealed or not concealed. Those are the things that I think the blue resistance is the most afraid of, because those things normalize gun ownership. In the 43 states that have CCW shall issue, or constitutional carry for that matter, people aren't that nervous about seeing a gun in public because they get used to it and they've come to accept it. And the guns are not some demonized foreign, alien object that needs to be feared no matter whose hands it's in. Once people come to accept that, then the battle to eliminate the gun culture, which the blue resistance is still clinging to and trying to fight, is they've lost it. So the bigger gun ownership and being able to own more kinds of guns and having guns in licensed guns in more places becomes a deterrent. The violent crime goes down. People realize that you don't have this Wild West shootouts in the street, which is what the politicians always try and push as their narrative against public carry.
Well, and I should say that every time they push that, it's turned out not to be true. You've mentioned in the past that if this decision went the way we wanted it to go, it would not be the beginning of the end. It would be the end of the beginning. And I once heard you also say it might be the end of the middle. So where are we? Are we at the end of the beginning or the end of the middle?
I'm optimistically going to say that this is the beginning of the end. After Heller, we knew that was the end of the beginning. And for the last 14 years, we've been fighting to get that case back to the Supreme Court. But we just have to hold on to our majority in the Supreme Court and hope that they will take more cases faster than they've done for the last 14 years. We had Kennedy on there who didn't want them. Roberts, who was, depending on what side of the bed he got up on that day, wishy-washy. Now we've got a strong majority, I think, at least 5, maybe 6 with Roberts, who really are tired of this and hopefully will take more cases sooner and set the parameters of the details straight now that they've set the broad strokes.
I have a couple of oddball questions for you. We have a bunch of sheriffs in this state, 58 of them. A lot of them have been, well, actually probably most of them have been moving toward shall issue as much as they could with the way the law was structured before. And those sheriffs cannot be happy with what the state is doing, because if the attorney for the sheriff's department can plainly read the decision and see that these things are unconstitutional, and the sheriff decides to try to enforce them anyway, isn't there some liability on the sheriff or the police chief or the city for enforcing these unconstitutional restrictions? Well,
they're not unconstitutional. They're not unconstitutional until a court says they're unconstitutional. So, but sheriffs have more authority because they're elected officials than appointed police chiefs or those. It gets into, the scope of authority that a elected or appointed official might have. The real question is, though, you had to establish good cause to get the license. Once you had the license, you could pretty much take it anywhere except for a few places where they were banned, like schools or whatever. Now, what the sheriffs are going to be upset about and are upset about is the license that they've decided to give. And in many jurisdictions, it was 90% of the way there to shall issue for self-defense. They couldn't go quite that far because the DOJ was watching. But now they can just go the rest of the way. But once the license is issued, what good is it? And if you're actually trying to give someone a license to be able to defend themselves and give them a meaningful opportunity and a meaningful tool to defend themselves with, if you limit it so you can't walk more than 100 or 1,000 feet without walking into some banned zone, that takes away the power of the license to begin with. And that's what sheriffs don't like. You're basically invalidating their license. Now that the standard to get one is lower, you're invalidating the ones that they give out and that people have.
Well, I think there's another problem, too, which we really haven't addressed, but I'm going to address it, and that is there's an awful lot of folks who have concealed carry permits because they need them. not simply
Right.
because they'd like to have one. And the folks that need them, in many cases, are now going to be faced with an option. Be legal and don't take the gun into these places where you're not supposed to take it and have your life at risk, or take the gun, conceal the tar out of it so that nobody knows you have it, even though you know it's a violation, because you'd rather be alive to face the problem and the consequences rather than dead and unable to. Which means we've once again, the state of California is trying to take an incredible number of law-abiding people who went through the process, who did it legally and were obeying the law, and turned them into criminals potentially.
Either intentional or accidental, because that's something that I've seen a million times for all the different California gun control laws. Good people accidentally break the law. Overnight, your gun becomes a so-called assault weapon at the stroke of a politician's pen. And people don't. Judges and prosecutors and defense attorneys and the experts at DOJ can't figure out what is and is not an assault weapon sometimes. So how's Joe Sixpack supposed to know? I mean, that's what's going to happen. How do you know when you cross a street that you did or did not enter what's been designated as a sensitive area where you're not allowed to, your license is no good? I mean, there's going to be accidental criminals all over the place. And that's part of the chilling effort that I think the Blue Resistance wants to launch, is to make it so people are afraid to exercise their rights.
Well, so far they've doxed everybody with a permit, or everybody that's applied for one in the last 10 years, which means, hey, don't try to get a permit. We might dox you too. And then they've limited the tar out of you. Oh, you might accidentally, step on the wrong sidewalk and we're going to get you. And so this is all meant to keep you from exercising your right. If you're watching this, I'm going to say to you, go apply for your permit anyway. Don't let these people frighten you out of applying. Go and get your permit.
That'll be a new list. And they'll promise not to release it, and I can't guarantee they won't. But it's not on the previous released list. I really don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think Attorney General Bonta knows much about gun laws. I don't think he knows the process for buying a gun. I don't think he knows what is or is not a private information on a concealed weapon permit. I don't think he knows what DROS stands for. So it may have been he just didn't put the safeguards in place that should have been there. But I think he's got enough sheriffs and judges and prosecutors breathing down his neck now that I don't think we're going to see another data breach like this for a while.
Well, there's a whole lot of Hollywood liberals carrying guns who now everybody knows they have a gun, have a permit, and where they live. And these are the people that would support somebody like Bonta, and they can't be exactly thrilled about it either, right. I wouldn't think.
Yeah, and I can't wait to go through this list. I haven't had time to look for all the liberal politicians who probably have secret permits to carry.
Sure.
But I do want to say, let me just thank all the folks who have been emailing in. As you've heard my computer beeping, I can't figure out how to turn that notification off, but I'm glad those folks are still sending in their information. I just need your name and your email address and your county of residence to helpdesk@michellawyers.com, because we are collecting those folks, and then I will keep you informed as things develop. Just please be patient. There's no need to file a lawsuit tomorrow. The investigation is being pushed by CRPA reps and GOC reps in Sacramento right now, by the sheriffs that we've been working with forever. There are things being done. We will get to the bottom of this. There will be some kind of accountability. And by the way, the folks in the Republican caucus is furious about this. They're driving this too, even though they're in the minority. They can still help push an investigation. So that investigation is ongoing, and the geeks are just getting involved, trying to really dig into what happened. We want to know how many times was this downloaded. Can we go out to where it was downloaded and try and claw back the database? There's a lot of unanswered questions right now, and the lawsuit. There's plenty of time to file a lawsuit or lawsuits, or 200,000 lawsuits, depending on what the best approach winds up being. And we'll let everybody know. So just keep sending us an email. Let us know you want to know. By the way, you could join CRPA. That would help because their membership dollars and donations pays for these lawsuits. We give generous breaks on our rates because
I'm going to be more bold than that. I'm going to be more bold than that. I'm going to do a shameless plug here, Chuck. Here you go. I did it yesterday or the other day when, I don't know, they're all running together. As you know, the other day when I talked to Sam, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. Life is tough right now. Money's tight for a lot of folks. Gas is stupid expensive. Prices have gone up, but you know what? Your rights are worth more than a few extra bucks. So here's my challenge to you: if you can afford to join. If you can't afford to join, but you can contribute $5, contribute $5. If you can join and contribute more, $50 or whatever, if you can do that. If you're extraordinarily wealthy and you can contribute a couple of $100,000, please write the check. If you're a billionaire somewhere on this planet and you support the Second Amendment, write a check for $1 million, please, or $2 million to the CRPA so they have plenty of funds to do this. It's your lunch money, and we all know it. Okay, so I'm challenging you to give according to your income as best you can to support these people who are working their butts off. You know, Chuck's firm, he is a very successful firm, but he has, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Chuck, but you do this at a discounted rate for CRPA and help them out a lot.
We're all true believers. We're not, you know, if I just wanted to make money, I would have stayed at the 1,000-lawyer downtown firm I was at representing gas companies. You know,
right.
They don't get great discounts.
You wouldn't even be talking to lowly people like me if that was the case. Okay, so I've got some. I'm going to ask you to prognosticate here a little bit.
Go
ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Let me follow one point on that. So some people don't want to get their name on a list, you know, and now we know why. But CRPA, you can sign up your dog as the member. We don't care. Fido, Fido GunGuy. We don't care. We're not going to scrutinize the name. Just give us a way to get in touch with you and keep you informed. You got to stay plugged in. And really, you know, we're talking about this being the end of the beginning. To make that happen, there's going to be dozens, maybe hundreds of lawsuits that have to be filed. And we just have to be able to, every time they try and do that blue resistance, we have to smack them down. And it just, you know, it takes money to be able to keep the lawyers at their desks cranking it out. My whole office was working all weekend, getting ready for all these things. We just need to keep everybody head down, focused, and cranking out lawsuits so that Newsom can't and his gang can't try and, you know, bleed us to with the death of 1,000 bureaucratic cuts.
Which brings up another question. And I am going to ask you to prognosticate here a little bit, because it strikes me that, you know, the other day when I was talking to Sam, I actually played a clip of their testimony, of Sam's testimony, along with Dan Reed before the Public Safety Committee and the Assembly, because I wanted people to see Assemblyman Quirk and his really demeaning response and his statement that he felt that the Constitution shouldn't be followed. What should determine what's legal is the legislatures, and the court should have no ability to do that. So I thought it was interesting. People need to see what their legislators think, and so I'm going to be doing that more often. If you're watching this, Assemblyman Quirk, please mouth off some more so I have more video of you making a fool of yourself. I'd really appreciate it. Is there an opportunity, Dan Reed brought this up, that in these legal restrictions they're putting up, there's no opportunity for someone out of state to get a permit. In California, there's no opportunity for reciprocity. And this is a right that does not end at the border of your state, judging by the opinion of the court. Is there an opportunity here for other states to sue California because California will not allow their citizens to carry in California and exercise their right here?
Whether other states sue or a California resident sues another state that won't recognize, well, yes. The answer is yes. Residency and it's called comity, C-O-I-T. This is what you have with marriage licenses. There's an interstate agreement that all states recognize another state's marriage license. And there was an issue about that when the gay marriage thing hit. But regardless, states can recognize each other's driver's license and such like that. And they need to recognize or be forced to recognize the legitimacy of a license to carry from another state, because there may be some nuances to that, as different states have different restrictions on legitimate, perhaps sensitive areas or legitimate qualifications. You can't be a felon or can't have violent history or whatever. But yes, being able to cross, your rights don't end. They didn't, in the Bruin decision, we got a ruling that says your rights don't end at the threshold to your house. They don't end at your front porch. The bear arms goes out to public. And now we need one that says they don't end at your state line either. And what was the other one you asked about? The residency and...
No, that was it. So I guess this cannot be the last word from the Supreme Court.
Oh, God, no. Oh, Lord, no. No. The only question is, are we going to get a big cluster of cases fast, or are they going to keep stringing them along one every couple of years? I don't think we're going to ever wait 14 years again. And I think that the court now knows that it's got to get while the getting's good, because, if somebody, Biden got one in, and if somebody dies, we lost Scalia unexpectedly. You just never know. Some of these folks have been there a while. And this, by the way, makes the next presidential election all that much more important. We got to get a Republican in there who's going to appoint similar judges, but and fight if the Dems try and expand the court so they can pack it.
And not a rhino, please. If you're going to put a Republican in there, put a conservative Republican in there, put a Make America Great Republican in there. Ron DeSantis comes to mind.
Yeah.
Somebody like that. If you're going to vote for somebody, let's vote for somebody who's actually going to support our rights. Chuck, is there anything we haven't spoken about that you want to make sure we know?
No, but you should have me back after we see what kind of response we get to this restraining order request in the marketing to minors ban. And folks should... CRPA puts these bulletins out, crpa.org puts these bulletins out. We get, as soon as we start getting questions, we try and put it all into a packaged answer that can be sent to everybody who's asking, because our receptionists, our phone lines are on fire. Our poor little receptionists, they're trying to keep up, but that's one thing I should add. Please be patient with us. We are buried, and we are dancing as fast as we can. We're trying to help everybody that we can. We're trying to fight the blue resistance. Help us. You can help us by supporting the cause and becoming a member and donating, whatever you can do. We're not going to stop fighting. It's just a matter of how fast we can keep fighting. That now, everybody recognizes now that there's a fundraising opportunity, and everybody tries to jump on the litigation bandwagon, because that is something that people respond to when you do a fundraising appeal about a lawsuit. But there's not many groups that are actually filing effective lawsuits. They may be trying to get out there and file something real fast so they can say, we were first, and then they can fundraise off of it. But that's not, I have tire marks up my back from when I started out, and I was jumping the gun on some of these lawsuits without doing the homework first so you can anticipate what you're going to come up against. Being the first is not being the smartest when it comes to filing lawsuits, and you have to have the resources, which means experienced, not just experienced lawyers, but experienced experts and technicians. And managing a class action is a science unto itself. Figuring out the data breach here requires expertise. How did that happen? That's a technical problem. These are the resources that we have access to be able to do a case right. So, it's encouraging that the folks that are coming together are smart enough to see that they need to get behind, a legal team and a team of experts that can help them win and do it right together. Just make sure everybody needs to be confident that no one is asleep on their shovel. Okay, everybody is working every angle. We know about what's going on in Sacramento. We're working with the sheriffs. I'm working with judges. I'm working with prosecutors. I'm working with defense attorneys. I'm working with celebrities. I'm working with all these subclasses, including just the average guy who needed it. So we're working all the angles, and we will keep working all those angles and making sure that we get the best result possible for gun owners and the freedom to choose to own a gun for sport or self-defense in California.
Now, Chuck, I want you to give me that email address again if people feel like they were on that doxed list. And exactly what information you want them to include rather than sending you a novel.
Helpdesk at michellawyers.com, MICHELLAWYERS.com, and you can put that on the bottom. And all I need right now is their name and the city and county they're in. I don't need a street address. I just need what I'm getting when you email in is your email address. And then I will get back to you with all kinds of information, options, breaking news, and updates on where things stand and what you can do. Basically, each of these people is effectively, looking for a legal consultation. What are my rights? What can I do? And as we figure that out and really nail it down, we will let you know. Then I will send you probably a form to fill out with more detailed information as we get closer to figuring out, what is it that we want to tell people they can or should do. But right now, some of the answers to that depends on what we find out that Bonta did or didn't do, or who did it at the Attorney General's office. So just get basically, logged in with me, and we'll get you some more information as it becomes available.
Last question, Chuck, and that is this going to take time to fight this slew of lawsuits and battles? Well,
yes. I don't think it's going to take 14 years. I don't know how long that data breach. There may be a legislative offer that comes out of that. We're working in Sacramento to get the legislature to try and come up with some kind of a fix. Maybe, I don't know if that's a monetary or, again, what I said, the only thing that really solves the problem is if you move and your new address is secret, and that's not coming from the state of California. I'm not going to pay for that. But who knows what there may be in the middle there that could try and undo some of the damage. But anyway, it will take, at least, unfortunately, lawsuits typically aren't fast. That's why we got some of these lawsuits started before Bruin came down. CRPA had the black rifle, the ammo ban, the ammo registration, the CCW in LA County, the 10 plus round magazine. We had those all in process already. And now we just, and a few more. Gun tax, well, that's one we're going to go after when they try and tax us to exercise our right. We started in San Jose. We've wrapped San Jose so much around the axle, I don't think they're ever going to be able to actually get that ordinance going. But now the state wants to jump on it. So all these things, yes, unfortunately, it doesn't happen fast. The way to try and make it happen faster is to, again, not jump the gun. You don't want to get wrapped around the axle when you come into the court with some procedural thing, like whether or not your clients have standing, or whether or not your case is moot or ripe, or all these other things that don't get to the ultimate answer to the question you're trying to get answered, which is this law unconstitutional or not? So you want to try and bypass all that rigmarole at the beginning and get to the ultimate solution that you're looking for as quickly as possible.
I know a lot of folks were super duper happy. I said it was the last question, but I do have one more. A lot of people were over the moon with the concealed carry decision because they immediately thought, this is fixed, I'm going to take care of it, I'm going to go get my permit, and off I go. In California, New York, other states like that. It's not looking that way because of what the state is doing. Is this a protracted fight, do you think, or can some of this stuff be cleaned up fairly quickly?
Well, the sensitive areas thing is going to happen pretty fast. We're going in there immediately. As soon as that bill is signed, I'm already assuming it's going to be signed. My lawyers are getting the complaint ready. They will file it the day that it is signed by Governor Newsom. And then we will be seeking injunctive relief. We'll be trying to truncate the process, make it happen as quickly as possible, rather than having to go through a bunch of discovery and all that pretrial stuff that happens sometimes.
You just spoke lawyer. What's injunctive relief? What does that mean?
We want to go in and ask for an injunction to stop the state from enforcing the law, and you can do that a lot earlier in a lawsuit than going to trial. So you can, at the start of a lawsuit, you file a complaint, then they file a responsive pleading and answer, or they try to do a motion to dismiss or whatever. At the pleading stage, the very beginning of the lawsuit, that's when you can try and resolve the ultimate legal issue through whatever procedural mechanism, a motion for judgment on the pleadings or an injunction or whatever it is, you try and do that so that you don't have to go through, because otherwise you go into discovery where they want to know all about the people who are your plaintiffs. How many guns do you own? Where do you live? What kind of training do you have? All this stuff that means nothing to the ultimate issue. And then you work your way up to a trial, courts are backed up on trial dates. So you want to do stuff at the beginning, and that's what we're focusing on trying to do.
Hallelujah. All right, last word. You got it. Go.
Keep the faith. Support as much as you can. Let us know you're interested through helpdesk, or you can sign up. Actually, you should do both. Sign up at CRPA.org for their bulletins. You don't have to be a member to get their bulletins. We want people informed whether they have money to join or support us or not, because you need to know what's going on and decide how you want to be involved. But get involved one way or get educated and get involved one way or another.
Absolutely. Chuck, thank you very much for taking your valuable time and getting on here with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for helping us get the word out, brother, and have me back anytime. Which will
you have an open
soon.
You have an open invitation. All you got to do, you got text me, right, and we'll make it happen. So as soon as you got something you want to share with us, let me know.
Will do.
All right, brother. Stay safe.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you very much again for watching the entire video. I realize these interviews are long, but again, lots of information, and we want to make sure that you have it. So I'm grateful that you watch all the way through and that you're dedicated to the Second Amendment and the fight that's going on not only in California, but other states like New York and New Jersey and so on. Please do share this video. I urge you to like it and share it. And I would appreciate it if you'd share the Rumble version. I'm actually trying to get people to move to Rumble or BitChute or an alternative place because YouTube's not a friend of ours. And I'm going to stay on YouTube because that's where people find me. But I really do think it's time to start migrating off of that platform as much as possible. Or at least, if we're going to use YouTube, let's also use these other platforms. So here they are again. I urge you to subscribe to one of those. And if you would like to join GunGuyTV Crew, you're welcome to do that. You can do that by going to GunGuyTVCrew.com. I'm actually trying to get the folks who are on Patreon supporting me moving over to locals. It's actually, honestly, it's a more robust program. You get to be more involved because you can post things and comment and like that. And local supports our rights, and Patreon, frankly, does not. And I'm tired of putting money in the pockets of these companies that don't support our rights. So I do urge you to go to GunGuyTVCrew.com. That will take you to locals. If you'd like to sign up, please do it there. Have a great week. Thank you very much for all of your support. And wherever you go, whatever you do, be safe.